I'm Janet Clark, and you are listening to the Sales Matchmaker podcast. Hello, it is Janet Clark, the Sales Matchmaker, and you are here with me today on the Sales Matchmaker podcast, where we are helping coaches, consultants, and high-ticket experts to close more sales. So here's the big question for today. Are you in a sales slump? Do you have that feeling like you should really just quit? Well, don't do it, right? Because look, if you feel like maybe you've lost your knack for selling, or you feel like things are spiraling a little bit out of control and you're not sure how to recover and get back to that consistent revenue flow, maybe you just are wondering, do I need to hire a crackerjack salesperson? And the answer to that, of course, is yes. However, not for the reasons you think. It's not, you can't just bring a salesperson in if you're in a slump, right? So you've got to get things moving so that you are prepared to bring in a salesperson. So I know that very often we get to this point where we just feel exhausted because maybe you're taking too many sales calls and they're not going anywhere and you just feel like you're spinning your wheels. Or maybe you're just not getting enough sales calls. And so you're feeling this panic of where am I going to get the clients? Where are they going to come from? So look, don't feel like you should quit. Don't get discouraged because this happens to all of us. It's happened to me. It's happened to every other 7-figure coach out there. Right? We have these dips and we have these slumps, and there are ways to fix it. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So knowing that you're not alone is helpful. And truly, I think about it, and I've been doing sales now for 40 years. So you would think that it wouldn't happen to me, but it does. And every time that it does, it will wreak havoc with your mindset if you don't take the right steps to fix the problem. So I'm going to share with you the good news and the bad news, right? So let's start with some good news. The good news is, no, you did not forget how to sell. If you could sell before, you can sell now. So that is not your problem. The bad news is that there is something broken in your systems. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But the other piece of good news, because I always want to leave you with something positive, is that this is totally fixable. So here's the trick that I've learned. It's to go back into your marketing and your sales systems and to identify where things have broken down. So we know that if you build your business, or if up to this point you have built your business on word of mouth, referrals, organic, that is not sustainable. And the reason is that it is not a robust sales system. Everyone needs to build their business with systems so that you can comfortably predict and know that you're going to have consistent flow of revenue coming into your business. And you need to be able to nurture those leads that come into your pipeline in such a way that qualifies them so that they will eventually turn into sales. Now, you do this through creating the right systems. So you may be at a place in your business where you really don't have those systems and you need to build them, or perhaps you do have systems, or you did have systems that were working at one point, but they're not working anymore and you have to fix them. So whichever it is, that is going to be the thing to focus on, not what you're trying to accomplish, not the end result, but the foundational systems that are underlying your marketing and your sales process. So the truth of the matter is that when you're having this problem, it's not an external problem, it's an internal problem. And very often when people think that they have a sales problem, what they really have is a systems problem. And those systems are your marketing and your sales and maybe even your operations that are holding you back. So very often I find that people will have a mental block about bringing in more business because their fulfillment systems are broken. And that even though you consciously want more business, subconsciously you're sabotaging it because you know that you have broken systems within your company. So let's kind of break this down a little bit. You probably have a problem with your prospecting. That's typically what I find is the number one problem that people have when they go into a sales slump. Now, this is part of your marketing system. So when you look at your marketing system, you want to start obviously with the most obvious things. Like, do you have an irresistible offer that is solving a pressing problem for a specific avatar, a very targeted avatar? Now, you could be in a situation where you've been customizing solutions and you'll sell anything to anybody just to get some revenue coming in the door. And again, that's not a system. And you will burn out and hit a plateau if you continue to do that. So the first question that you really need to ask yourself is, have I done the work to put together an irresistible offer? Do I know exactly who my ideal targeted client is? And am I putting my messaging out there in such a way to attract that ideal client? Now, if you don't do that, what's going to happen is you're in the red ocean, right? That bloody red ocean where everybody is competing for the same people and everybody looks alike and sounds the same. And if that's the case, you're going to like get beat up, right? And it's going to be painful. So we want to get you into a blue ocean, which is where you are using your own unique genius to serve your own unique market with your own unique system. And that's like one of the first things that in my sales map program, we work with our clients on that, because the minute they fix that, things change immediately. So that's the first thing to look at. Now let's talk about prospecting a little bit, because once you know exactly who your ideal target is and you know what problem you solve for them, then you need to really hone in on those people and getting the word out to those people, right? And messaging them, getting in conversations with them. So look, if you're doing random Facebook Lives and your messaging is all over the place, if you're ending up doing maybe some ads and you're finding that those ads are just filling up your calendar with a bunch of tire kickers or unqualified prospects, then you don't have a good prospecting system in place. And that's the thing that you have to look at next. Because you know what? It doesn't matter how great you are at sales. If you are talking to people who are not your buyers, they are not going to buy, and you're not going to close those sales. So again, it's not really a sales problem, it's a prospecting problem. Now, of course, filling the pipeline with ideal prospects is just one aspect, because then once you get those prospects into your pipeline, you have to be able to nurture them and turn them into qualified prospects. And this doesn't happen when you're on the phone with them. When you're actually in a sales call, it has to happen before they get on the sales call. So if you're finding yourself on sales calls, spending all your time on these calls talking about your program and what you do and how you help people, you're having the wrong conversation. It's not a sales conversation. The sales conversation is not, does the program work? The sales conversation is, will it work for me? And so you have to make sure that your marketing is taking care of all of that preliminary work, getting your clients to understand that your program works. And then you get on a call with them and start talking about their individual issues and what's stopping them and why they think it isn't going to work for them. So that's the most important thing that you have to set up, which is really your qualifying system. Now, in order to set up a really good qualifying system, you need to have a CRM. Now, the CRM, for most of you know, is the customer relationship management system. And there's many of them out there. We happen to use HubSpot, but we customize it for our own sales process, which is exactly what you should be doing as well. You need to know where your prospect is in the process. You need to know, have they watched a webinar? Have they seen my videos? Are they subscribed to my YouTube channel? Are they in my Facebook group? Have they read a report, or have they been to my sales page? All of these things are really important, so you know how well educated they are about what you're doing. So there is an actual buying process that your ideal client is going to go through, and you have to know what that is. Now, here's an interesting statistic. There are only 26% of salespeople who have a formal system in place to track the progress of their leads. 26%. So you want to make sure you're in that 26%, because the rest of the people are going to get to a point where they can't grow their business any further. But when you put these systems in place, you can then track what's going on, fix things that aren't working correctly, and actually know what's in your way. So that's super, super important. It's also important to, as I said, to know your client's buying process. So we call it their sales map. Like, what does it take for them to actually come through your funnel and be ready to get on a call to make a purchase from you? And it's really a critical component that you have to have in place before you can bring a salesperson onto your team. So once you have your marketing systems in place so that you can get the right prospects into your pipeline, nurture them, and then bring them through a qualifying process, then you're ready to talk about your sales system. Now, here's another statistic that you're not going to believe, and that's that only 3%. I mean, can you even imagine this? Only 3% of salespeople actually have a sales framework in place for how they actually go through a sales call. So the reason is because these people who are getting on calls with them are at all different stages of the process. And so their framework for how they would normally bring a person through isn't going to work, because the conversation has to be different at all different stages. So you want to get to the place where you know exactly where this person is by the time they get on the call with you, and you can use your framework. We know that sales is both a science and an art. And the science is the psychological steps that a person has to go through in order to make a buying decision. And the art is your own personal way that you implement those steps. So I never discount the importance of the sales process, even though I feel that people can tweak it and make it their own, which is why I call mine the HeartFlow sales system, which basically does have a framework for how the conversation is going to go, but also allows for a lot of personality and heart connection to be put into the conversation. But that is a subject for another podcast. Actually, if you wanted to learn more about the HeartFlow sales process, you can go back to my podcast page, which is thesalesmatchmaker.com. And I think it's maybe episode 3 or something like that, where I go through that. So anyway, going back to the sales process, you want to make sure that you understand what the flow is that you are taking people through, and make sure that you aren't skipping any of the important parts. So in HeartFlow, there's actually 9 parts to that process, and every one of them is important. And so you can sometimes, as a salesperson, get lazy. We all do it. We have to go back to basics, right? And say, what am I missing in this process that's hurting me and making these people not make the buying decision? So maybe you're skipping through the active listening part. Maybe you're not asking really good questions anymore and you're making too many assumptions. Maybe you're not getting clarification and digging deep enough when you're asking the questions. Maybe you're just not listening effectively. You're not establishing that trust or that heart connection. Maybe it's just that you aren't focusing enough on the pain that that person is in and being able to lay out an offer that speaks to the pain and not just is generic. So sometimes we lose sight of the fact that we start doing things kind of in rote as opposed to doing them in a really heartfelt conversational way with people. So I would obviously, once you go through your marketing systems, you really want to look at that sales flow, that conversation, and how you're actually handling that. So look, finally, the last thing that I would say, and this is crucial, and you guys get this because you're all coaches or consultants or experts in some way. Every one of us needs a coach at some point or another. And we all start to get into bad habits, and we can't always figure out what they are because you know that old saying that you can't read the label from inside the bottle. So it's important to reach out to a coach or a mentor to get things moving within your company. Maybe you need help with your systems. Maybe you just need help with your mindset. Whatever it is, you need to recognize that everything that we do in business is done better as a team. And that when you can make something a team effort, when you can synergize with another really smart person who has your best interest at heart, they're going to be able to help you. You don't have to struggle alone. So that's a key thing to keep in mind. And sometimes as coaches, we forget that we need to be coached too, right? We need mentorship and we need that inspiration from other people. And so the best way to get out of a slump is to find someone who can help you to create a solution together. So needless to say, your business, your mission, your big impact in the world is super important. And it is worth fixing the problem that you are encountering, whatever it is, even if you're not even sure yet what it is. So hopefully, by going back to basics and going through these systems that I just talked about today, you're going to get a clearer idea of where you need help. You may be able to fix them by yourself, you may not. But most importantly, if you need help, reach out and get it. It's funny, I was thinking the other day about, sometimes I even resist making an investment into another mentor or another coaching program. But I recognize and I look back and I say, every time I've done it, I've had this catapult in my breakthrough of my mindset, in my revenue growth, in people that I've met because I've, interacted with a new coach and a new community. So as hard as it is sometimes for all of us to make a new commitment financially, it is the way through. It is the thing that will break down the barrier for you. So don't hesitate to do it, even though it feels hard. And recognize also that sometimes just spending money on yourself is the thing that's going to attract more money to you. And I think I talked about that in one of the last couple of episodes, how important it is if you're, even trying to raise your rates or you want to have a breakthrough, is to go out and spend some money on you, make an investment in you. So those are my words of wisdom for today. I really want to let you all know that I'm always available. I'd love to hear your feedback. And I also have a new email address. Now, if you've got my old email address, it'll work, obviously. But there's going to be some major shifts happening here at the Freedom Shift, which is my company, which is now merging in with two other companies. And the new company is going to be called Sales Map, which I've been talking about a lot. It was the name of the program. Now it's going to be the name of the company. So you can reach me at janet@salesmap.me, janet@salesmap.me. So feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from you. And if you want to go back to any of the earlier episodes of the podcast, you can do that at www.thesalesmatchmaker.com. And in the meantime, have a wonderful week. Happy selling, and bye for now. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Sales Matchmaker podcast. To hear more episodes, Visit us at www.thesalesmatchmaker.com.